Hello and welcome to the first episode of the No Restrictions podcast. My name is Karen, your host and the owner of No Restrictions Apparel. I'm a sub 63 kilo Canadian powerlifter and mental health advocate. Today's guest is Veronique Cormier, a fresh open sub 57 kilo powerlifter and the owner of Leafy Gains, a vegan protein cookie company she started a couple years ago. In this episode, we talk about her struggles with orthorexia and binge eating disorder, her rock bottom moment, and her journey through recovery with powerlifting. We also talk a bit about how her approach to meats have changed over time and discuss her experience competing at IPF Worlds in Sweden earlier this year. There were some moments when I was speechless, and if you're watching this episode through a screen, you will see my jaw drop at times. I am so proud of how far Veronique has come, and it was an honor hearing her story with her here in person. Now, without further ado, enjoy the episode. So, Veronique, welcome to Halifax. You're originally from Moncton, New Brunswick?
Yeah.
And I know you're a powerlifter, but apparently you're here for a strongman, strong woman competition?
Yeah, something like that.
So, why are you trying strongman?
Well, my coach, Mitchell Hooper, I guess some of the listeners might know who he is now. It's kind of weird because he started coaching me before anybody really knew who he was, but now he's kind of very known in the strongman world. So he coaches me, and he went to World's Strongest Man recently, and just like watching him was like obviously really inspiring. But most of our team of athletes, they do strongman as well. I'm only the only ones that only do powerlifting. So I was like, let me try this out, I guess. And we recently joined Strength Factory, a gym in Moncton that's strength-based, and they've been getting like more equipment. So I was just kind of fooling around with the implements.
More equipment for strongman?
Yeah, exactly.
So, do you remember the first time you heard about me?
The first time.
Do you remember when we met? Well, maybe like
I
more
remember,
like virtually.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about virtually because I remember obviously the first time we met in person. That's kind of harder to forget there, but
I think I actually slid in your DMs.
okay.
It was Nationals 2019 actually.
Okay.
I just got started powerlifting like earlier that summer. I think my first competition was in February of that year, and so I was just getting started with powerlifting. And when Nationals came on, I was like, oh my god, I want to see all the other strong people and strong girls my age. And I think you were in the 52 or 57 kilo weight class.
52 if it
52.
was 2019, yeah.
Yeah.
Barely 52.
And I remember watching you, and I was just so in awe because you lifted like pretty heavy weights for a 52. Like, of course, you were at Nationals. But from what I understand and looking at your Instagram posts, Nationals 2019 was a bit rough for you. Would you mind elaborating on that?
Yeah, of course. As far as my preparation for 2019 Nationals, I was a bit of like a rough spot, kind of going through like a relapse with my eating disorder. I had kind of managed to gain a little bit of weight like in the off season. Like I was sitting above 52 kilos, but I actually like was planning on like cutting back down, and I did, but I kind of like spiraled. When you're like a powerlifter, they say you always want to like kind of weigh in above, and you don't want to cut too much too early. But I wasn't satisfied with just cutting 52. Once I got there, I was like, oh, let me just, cut a little bit more and a little bit more. And it kind of got out of hand. I was also working with a nutritionist at the time, and I was doing like a liver cleanse.
A liver cleanse? What the fuck is that?
So, okay, let me explain, but like...
Please explain.
So I was convinced that, we kind of convince ourselves of a lot of things, when mentally you're not right and you're in that mindset. But I was convinced I had candida, and that's why I had acne, and that's why I had, skin problems, and that I needed to do a whole candida cleanse and everything to rid myself of my acne.
Wait, so what's candida?
It's like basically bad bacteria in your stomach, but like overgrown, I guess. So like too much bad bacteria. So I was watching these videos, I think on YouTube, of this nutritionist that I ended up working with. But apparently before you do the candida cleanse, you needed to do like a liver cleanse so that your like liver can handle it, I guess. Like,
so it must be really intense stuff.
Yeah. So basically, while I was doing my preparation for Nationals, she had me doing a liver cleanse, which wasn't the most intense part. You could still have like a little bit of carbs, but like no like real sugar, like not even like fruit pretty much, because it would feed the candida or whatever. And then after you're supposed to go like low carb, like keto, right? But like after your competition, which is not really realistic, that, you know, after competition usually you want to, you know, enjoy yourself a little bit. But I was like convinced that I was going to start like the day after like nationals.
Wait, so you were allowed to eat carbs before competing?
Yeah, but just not that much, and more like no grains, I think. It was just like a little bit of starches, maybe like some butternut squash or something.
Butternut squash is barely anything. Yeah. It's just like water and flavor.
Yeah, pretty much. But I still remember I had like my freezer stocked with like all of these like low carb things I was going to eat like after but I struggled mostly with like orthorexia and binge eating disorders. So like that restriction of that cleanse and everything like was really bad for me in terms of like relapsing with binging after, especially since I was you know, I had cut so much weight down and everything as well.
So it was really triggering for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Nutritionally, how did that affect your training leading up to it?
I mean, my numbers were okay, but on the day of, like, I didn't perform nearly as well as I thought I would. I actually ended up eating breakfast before the competition, and I still weighed in like 50 kilos, I think.
50 kilos and 52 kilo.
Yeah.
How tall are you? You're about like my height.
5'2" 3/4", maybe.
Okay, so honestly, like 50 kilos is pretty light for your height.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned binge eating. So from my understanding, binge eating comes after like a restrictive phase.
Yeah.
How did your restrictive phase start? Like, would you mind giving me like the context of when it developed?
Yeah, for sure. And just to go in a bit more like detail, I guess, like I was also convinced that like I was binging because the overgrowth of bacteria was like, it sounds so silly now, but like it was like causing me to like eat sugar and like binge on sugar. So like if I would get rid of that I wouldn't binge anymore, you know? Like I didn't make the link of like it's because you're like restricting yourself so much that like you're actually binging, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
it started I think in 9th grade. I did cheerleading all throughout high school, and I think it started with like I was always the one that was like thrown into the air, you call it the flyer or whatever. And it started I think just with like, oh, if I was like, you know, a little bit lighter, maybe like they could throw me a bit higher, you know. But you know, I was already like at a very like healthy, very slim body type frame, so I didn't have to lose weight by any means. Like I was already at a really healthy weight for my body, but it kind of spiraled from there. And it was like in my group of friends, I was like the health freak. It was kind of like fueling it in a way because they saw it as healthy, but like I wasn't in a healthy mind frame at all. Like if I would go to my friends, like I wouldn't even eat their food. Like I would if I would eat anything, I would bring my perfectly like prepped meal,
and, like weighed out and stuff.
Yeah. And at one point I was on 3 cheerleading teams. So some days I was like doing 2 practices in a row. So like 6 hours of training. And for me, like the orthorexia was really like with like, I thought like low carb and everything, but like for an athlete, like that's actually like really not good for you because your carbs is your main fuel source. And it actually like was really bad for like my hormones, especially like as a female, because carbs are like good for your thyroid and all, you know, to support your hormones and everything like that. But like the only carb I would eat would be like berries.
Which is like
nothing.
0. Like no carbs.
Yeah. But I was training like mad and lost my period and all of that. I've always been like, now I fall asleep like this, you know, but like my cortisol was so high that like I was just like up at night, like I couldn't sleep, like my hormones were just like so like a mess. Like it was just horrible, honestly. But
you said that you were already like at a healthy body weight. Did anyone ever like make comments about your body that like kind of triggered that to start?
No. Well, It's funny you say that because I totally forgot about that. And then I just got like a
flashback?
Yeah. I remember one guy calling me like a cow or something. And I was
cow?
Yeah. And I don't know why that just came up when like because like it's from like years ago, but not really, honestly. But like my sister, she had anorexia. She was hospitalized with it. So I don't know if it's some part genetic as well, but yeah, other than that, not really. Like the way we grew up, like nothing against my mother, any like my parents or anything, they did a really good job in raising us and everything, but it was always, and even my grandmother, like she talks all the time about how she needs to lose weight, like to this day, like still not acceptant of her body. My aunt, you know, my mom always, like when we grew up, was like talking about her cellulite, and like I'm like, what's cellulite? You know, like,
yeah.
like I didn't even know what it was at that time, but like just things that you don't really realize but maybe have an impact on like how you see things now, I guess.
Yeah, because like when you're a child, like you soak up everything like a sponge, and like especially when adults say something that like it's a belief about themselves or a belief about whatever, when a little kid hears that, then like they're gonna take it as the truth.
Yeah.
So when you were doing cheerleading, what kind of exercises were you doing? Was it related to like lifting at all? Like did you do any of that, or was it like just body weight stuff?
Mostly body weight stuff. Like when we would do practices, we would have exercises. Like when we started, we would do like push-ups and stuff to kind of like, get stronger and stuff. But mostly all body weight. And when I like put a bit on of weight, like when I was in 12th grade, I think I was the one throwing people up in the air. So that I guess involves a bit more like lifting. But as far as like when you're the one getting thrown, like you still want to hold your weight a little bit. Like it's almost like a tricep dip because you're holding the shoulders, and like you don't want to like stomp your feet like in their hands. So you want to like really like support your weight, and I guess it's a little bit of upper body work, I guess, but mostly body weight.
Did you do any other kind of like sport or kind of exercise before cheerleading, or did you go straight to like powerlifting style of workout?
I've always been more into like artistic like sports, I guess that's a thing. Like I've done like dance, I've done a bit of gymnastics, mostly like cheerleading that I stuck to, but like I dabbled in like swimming, or like I did a bit of volleyball, but it never like stuff that I really stick to, I guess. Like the stuff that I stick to for like extended periods was mostly cheerleading and weightlifting.
I don't know much about cheerleading, but I do know that it seems to be like the complete opposite of powerlifting, because like cheerleading, like especially when you're a flyer, you have to be, relatively petite size so that, other people can like pick you up and stuff. So what about powerlifting like really drew you to it?
I'm not sure, but like I started lifting weights before I actually started powerlifting, like when I was still cheerleading. And I remember, I didn't know powerlifting was a sport then, but I remember being like, I really like this. But it was almost like it became like towards the end, like at first I really loved cheerleading, but then towards the end of high school, I almost felt like I didn't really have as much time to do weightlifting that I wanted to, because I was cheering so much. So when got out of high school and stopped cheering, I just kind of continued with like weightlifting. We also had a program in school that was basically you just went to the gym every day, and I guess that's kind of where it started, honestly, because you weren't supposed to lift like more than something you were able to rep out for, like, I can't remember what it was, maybe 8 or more reps, because they didn't want you to go super heavy, I guess, because like maybe you're not using good form or something, and they don't want you to get hurt and for it to be a liability. I don't know, but I remember me and my friend, I would always like try to sneak, and like I would do like a heavy weight for like 3 reps or something, and like there was one time I remember he caught on to it, like the instructor of the class, and he was like, okay, let me see your 8 reps, and I was like grinding trying to get like, I think I got like 6 just from like pure will of just like trying to prove him wrong.
So like, was it that grinding aspect that you liked, or like what about lifting at the time did you like?
Yeah, I think I felt like really empowered to like, I like, you would constantly do something that you didn't know you were capable of, and like kind of challenge your own limits that you put on yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And at the time, like when like this stuff was going on, what was your relationship with like your eating disorders? So like what was it like then?
In 12th grade, I mostly struggled with binge eating like very, very badly. But obviously that was still fueled by restriction because like after a binge, I would like, be like, okay, well, now I need to restrict because I just ate all of that. So then it would just fuel the cycle like farther. But it's weird because like our body's so like smart, obviously, but like it's like, I was trying to lose weight and then I kept that up for a bit, obviously, but then I ended up getting to my like highest weight because I kept binging, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't get out of that cycle.
What does that feel like when you're like having those cravings? Like what kind of thoughts go into your mind? Because I feel like I've experienced some kind of binge, but like without the restriction part.
Yeah.
So it might be different. So, and also like people listening might not know what binge eating disorder actually is.
Yeah. That brings like a lot of memories because you kind of feel like you're crazy in a way. Like it's like just don't eat the food, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're talking to someone about sorry, I'm getting kind of
No, that's okay.
here.
That's okay.
But yeah, it's bringing a lot of things back, I guess that yeah. Okay. Sorry. I don't know. It's kind of like animalistic. You know what I mean? It feels like an out of body experience. It's like you can't control it, even if like you can, but like
is it like an instinct? Like you feel like it's an instinct to eat more.
Yeah. It feels like it's like I almost feel like something's taking over you. Like it's not you that's actually like eating all the food. Like I don't know. It's really hard to explain if you like haven't experienced it. And I feel like I use social media at a like certain point to kind of talk about it, and I would get DMs of people asking me things, and it's there's a lot of shame and like anorexia and orthorexia. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I feel like there's more shame when it comes to binge eating. Like because I feel like as a society we're told that like eating less is better, right? So if you struggle with binge eating disorder, it like a lot of people just like deal with it alone, and you kind of feel like you're crazy because no one else talks about it,
Yeah. I kind of want to understand like what it feels like to go through I guess you call it a binge, like when an episode happens, I guess.
Yeah.
How does it start? And you've already described what it feels like when you're in the middle of it. And then how does it end? Like, is it really abrupt, like a switch turns off, like the animal inside you kind of like leaves? Or is it really gradual?
I guess it's like, so it comes on, it's kind of like, it's like you feel like you're literally like gonna go insane if you don't do it. Like, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like someone's like knocking on your head, like it's like, so you do it, and then, but when you start, it's almost like you're not just, eating slowly and stuff. It's like you're eating so fast that like you don't even have time to like register that you're full. And if, a lot of people that have gone through an eating disorder or are going through one right now, like know that like your hunger cues can get like so messed up. Like, so like I didn't know like what feeling full felt like unless like I binged, you know what I mean? Like I would, if I ate a normal meal, like I would not feel full. I would just stop because I felt like that's like what a normal amount like of food was like. But then, at some point it's like, they say it takes like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes for you to register full. So you ate like so much food, and then like you kind of feel like the effect after, like, holy shit, like what did I just do? Like I'm so full. You could eat like 3,000 calories or something in a sitting. Like it's insane. And then at that point, like all the guilt sets in, and it's like, oh fuck, I just did. I don't know if it's like
you can swear, it's fine.
Sorry. Like I just did it again, kind of thing. And I would just like have a breakdown. I would feel so down on myself, and like, I would like, I don't know, like go on a walk. Like I would try to like kind of work it off a little bit so that I wouldn't feel like so sick. And but I remember like my mom just like realizing like entire like jars of like peanut butter and stuff were gone, and she was like, didn't we just buy that yesterday? And like I just didn't know what to say. Like
So your parents didn't know, or like was it just you?
yeah, like my sister had moved out at that point. It was like me and my mom. My parents split up when I was in ninth grade. So I guess that's kind of when it started too. So like I know they say like traumatic events and stuff can kind of lead to it as well. And I had a friend, my best friend, pass away in 8th grade. So like I don't know how it all started, but like I guess you could say whatever. There was traumatic events, I guess, but um and my I think I opened up to my mom about it before because she found me hiding in a closet because I was just like she was like looking for me. She's like, Veronique, like I don't know, she wanted to ask me something, I guess. But I was just like in full blown like breakdown mode. So I was like, shit, like I don't want her to see me like this. So like I just like was like trying to hide from her or something. And when she like found me, she wouldn't let it go. She's like, what's wrong? Like she was just sitting there for like 2 hours until I was like telling her. So I was trying to tell her. I don't really know if she like understood, you know what I mean? But I can't remember like exactly the conversation. But yeah, when she would ask like, oh, didn't we just buy that yesterday? Like looking around for it, I would just I don't know, I would just kind of pretend like, oh, I don't know, I don't know. Like I think I would try to put it in like a garbage bag that she wouldn't see or something, like
Yeah.
just like hide. But and it was, some people like usually you binge on like high calorie foods or like high palatable foods, but we always had like really healthy food in the house. So to think about the things I would binge on now literally sounds insane because I can never picture myself doing that now. But like entire jars of nut butter, like not even just like the craft one, like natural peanut butter.
The expensive good stuff, basically.
Yeah, but like the stuff that like sticks on your throat.
Oh
like,
yeah, because they're like it's just full of like raw nuts. So
Yeah.
it's like you got all the pulp too.
yeah, and like just like
My
loaves
God.
of like sourdough bread with like like fruit, like just the like anything, but like we didn't have anything that you would really snack on that would be like, chips
Yeah.
or like I know some people do and would have access to that, but yeah, I was really like that was how deprived I I was. Like to me that was like that tasted insanely good. Like I could not stop myself.
Was that kind of like healthy food, like the focus on, I guess more like, I guess you could say like a restriction on eating healthy food only?
Yeah.
Do you think that influenced your binge eating disorder?
Definitely. I thought I had like a food addiction or something. I was like, oh, like if I eat like any sugar or stuff, like I'm just like I'm gonna binge on it. Like I can't stop at just one. So I would just like, try to eat like really healthy and stuff. And obviously that really backfired and now I see it completely different. But I definitely in my recovery, I mean, I don't know if we're I'm kind of going on tangent right now there, but
We could talk about recovery now.
yeah, I guess in my recovery, like there was a stage, and I think this is kind of popular now. I guess like people know a bit more about it, but it's funny because I went through it like I think right before Stephanie Buttermore went through it.
Yeah.
But she calls it like all in. And I think when I read about it, I think that was the term they used as well. But so I guess like the beginning when I call it like I was in quasi recovery, I guess you would say, like was when I started tracking, because then I would kind of try to incorporate foods that I wouldn't allow myself before, but see that like it wasn't gonna make me gain weight overnight, or it wasn't gonna caused me to binge, or you know what I mean? Like it was kind of, restoring my mind, like, okay, like it's okay. You don't have to, eat broccoli all day, every day. Like
Imagine binging a broccoli. You don't hear that very often. It's like cake, chips, and I don't know, like unhealthy food, but like
yeah. But the thing is, like, it did help me because I would count, like, okay, I didn't binge for a week. Like I would always try to, like go like, and that helped me to a certain extent because I was like, I think I got up to like 3 months at a time sometimes with the tracking. So I was definitely like making progress with it, but it was to a point where it was kind of like a crutch because if I wouldn't track, I would binge. So kind of like another thing in itself. But then when I transitioned away from tracking at first, that's when I kind of went all in, if you will. Like and nothing was off limits. And I would just kind of eat whenever I had mental hunger, like whenever I felt like eating, because I didn't really have hunger cues.
right.
If that makes sense.
So you just started implementing like, I guess like a normal meal routine?
Yeah, like I would just eat my normal meals, but whenever I felt like a snack or whenever like I felt like, oh, I want to eat something right now, like I would eat it. Not like I wouldn't, wait till, okay, I feel physically hungry, because I didn't really feel that ever at that point. I would just, when I mentally felt like eating food, like food sounds good to me, I would eat. And that really helped actually restore my actual hunger cues. Like, and after that, I actually became to a point where I was like, I'm actually full. Like, because I was the type of person, I had to not eat it or eat the entire plate. You know what I mean? But I would actually become at a point where I was like, I'm satisfied. Like, I don't need more, like maybe there's some left on my plate. So like my natural hunger cues kind of came as I like learned to trust my body, I guess.
I can relate to a lot of that, but I don't think I had like that pattern of binging. But how does powerlifting come into play?
So powerlifting, I started powerlifting at like the peak of my binging. And when I started powerlifting, it was kind of an escape in a way, because it was like it made me forget about it. Like I loved lifting so much that like during that time it's like I didn't even think about it, right? And it helped me a lot because I realized at the start I was still binging every so often, but I was actually like losing weight. So I think it kind of made me realize that I needed a lot more food than I thought I did. Like maybe I'm not eating as much as I think I am, especially like with the extra activity and stuff. And it became more about, fueling my body as an athlete versus about like how my body looked like. So it kind of shifted the focus, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was the same for me. And like I don't know about you, but like when I started, like I wouldn't say binging, but like when I went into my own all-in journey,
Yeah.
when I was like gaining the weight, I kind of like saw powerlifting, or like lifting weights at the time for me, as a way to like I wanted to take advantage of the fact that I was eating so much and like gain muscle. So like does that resonate with you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that came a bit later on in my journey. I think in the beginning I started, honestly, like my coach like encouraged me to cut weight like right from the start, which the sport was like not very big then. Like I don't think he recommends that now. Like I feel like it's pretty common knowledge that like you don't cut for your first meet kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
you just kind of grow until you kind of get competitive now and stuff. But I was kind of his first athlete that wasn't his wife, I think, first powerlifting athlete. So I think I was kind of like an experiment in a way, but like I did a water cut and stuff for my first meet. But I think he knew a little bit that I struggled with binge eating, but I think probably didn't realize to the certain extent because for me, it was like really stressful for my first meet because I felt like I had no control over my binges. And like, I was like, I can't let him down. Like, I need to make weight, you know what I mean? But then I was like, what if I like binge the night before and then I can't, you know, like I don't make it. And like, it was kind of a stressful experience. But at that point I was cutting to 57. And then I think like I did one meet after that. I didn't cut at all. And I ended up just naturally weighing in 57. But that was honestly like a really good summer for me, because I remember like at that point I didn't really like, that was one of the times I went like 3 months, I think, without binging. So most of the summer, and I just ate what I want, like, and it was, I don't know, I have good memories of like that time in my life, I guess. And then after that, it was more like, oh, well, maybe we could cut to 52. And then that kind of spiraled things down. And then NAPF is kind of when things started looking up again, I would say.
NAPF is Pan American,
Yeah.
right? That was the one in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Kind of like going back to like the first topic about Nationals 2019. Back in your Instagram post,
Yeah.
I read that you were very anxious and you wanted to quit before Nationals, but then like when you stepped on the platform, all those like anxieties and those thoughts were washed away. Do you know what happened exactly to make that happen?
So basically, I didn't have a coach during that time. So it was really hard for me because I had to kind of figure out like how to do my own programming and stuff. And I had a really hard time with like trusting myself and like my own abilities. Like I would always kind of question like, oh, am I doing this wrong? Like, am I going to be ready? Like, am I, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have really any guidance. Yeah, I guess that was really hard on me. There was other things like going on that don't really
That's okay.
want to go into,
But like that kind of self-questioning kind of like is kind of a reflection, it seems, of like the binge like I guess the binge cycles when you can't trust your own abilities because you it was impossible to control like when you were in a binge. So it sounds like to me that when Nationals came around and you didn't have a coach, a lot of your anxieties were fueled by those kind of voices.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, it would make sense that like, I guess you could say like my relapse maybe in a way had like something to do with the fact that I felt like I had no control over my training, even if I did, but like I felt like I didn't know that like what I was doing at all. So it was like, well, I can control my food.
You're pretty okay with the food side of things leading up to Nationals then.
Yeah, well, like we talked about like earlier, that was kind of when I like spiraled and I was with that like nutritionist and everything. So I felt like I had everything in order, but like things were actually really not doing that like well. Like I wasn't binging because I was, you know, following that plan like closely, and I felt like for me, I felt like it was always an aspect of control a little bit with the binging as well. It was like, if I can, you know, stick to my macros perfectly, stick to this plan, then I'll be all right. But then as soon as the competition was kind of over and I didn't have like an immediate plan, like things like really went like downhill after that.
So it's like a really intense post-meet blues.
Yeah.
For me, post-meet blues is just like feeling really sad and bummed that like you don't have anything to train for. But for you, it sounds like it means it meant a lot more, especially at that time when you were doing that liver cleanse and trying to like figure out and especially like you weren't able to perform to your expectations at Nationals. So I guess in what ways did your post-meet blues, like in what ways was it worse than like say mine?
So I don't want to say that like my like post-meet blues or whatever is worse than anybody else's. But I guess like I always felt like if I'm in like competition prep, like I don't know, it was like that aspect of like control and like I'm like working really hard towards something and kind of ignoring everything else in my life, if that makes sense. And then when everything when that was done, it's like everything else comes rising to the surface, like
Right.
that you were kind
Yeah.
of bottling up and pushing aside. I feel like after that, I was always convinced that I was like, gonna do the candida cleanse, but then I would just binge and then restart it, binge, restart. I even remember, like, I think I missed like someone's birthday because I was like doing the candida cleanse, like someone important to me. It was the first time that because when I'm sick, I'm never someone that can throw up, but it was the first time that I was actually able to purge. And that really scared me because I knew that if I had that, then it would be way harder to recover from, because I'd have like a way of counter balancing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it kind of like scared me into recovery, if that makes sense. I also had like my roommate at the time. She was there for me as much as she could be, but like it was really hard on her to see. And I think she kind of got not mad at me, but like we kind of got into a fight because she was like, you need to get help. Like, I can't help you. And sorry.
It's okay.
And I kind of realized that I was like pushing everybody away, and that I guess I couldn't continue living like that, if that makes sense. Like, I had to help myself.
Was that is that what you would consider your rock bottom?
Yeah.
And did you only purge once, or did it happen multiple times?
I was only able to do it once. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have shivers right now. Oh my God. How did you go about recovery after that? And how did powerlifting help?
So when I qualified for NAPF, like I wasn't thinking I was going to qualify for NAPF at all. I was kind of surprised that I did. And I think part of my identity became, being a powerlifter, and I really wanted to excel in powerlifting. And I was convinced that the only way for me to do that was to cut weight to be competitive. I was really torn of doing NAPF because I knew, like, I had just started recovery, which meant going up a weight class for me. I constantly like had to tell myself that maybe that's not my purpose. Maybe my purpose is to show even just like one person that you can do this in a healthy way that's not going to break you mentally and or physically. Maybe it's not going to help anybody for me to be super competitive, really. It's not going to help anybody but me, maybe. But if I can help one person not feel as alone and like, inspire one person to do it in a healthy way, then like maybe that's my place. And so I kept telling myself that, right? And I, at this point, like I had a really hard time with training because I was recovering, I was gaining weight, but my numbers weren't like really going up yet. So I just felt like, oh, well, I'm just gaining weight, but like I'm just getting less competitive because I'm lifting the same thing, like, so It's kind of like a mental battle, I guess. But NAPF, I met a lot of great people there that really impacted me in the right way, in a good way. And from then on out, I kind of, I don't know, I had this drive of like, I guess I owe it to myself and to, try this like self-coaching thing and actually trust myself and like see where it's gonna go. So I did, and I ended up adding a lot of kilos to my total, and I was training for like nationals 2020 and ended up getting second place and actually qualifying for worlds, which was an all-time dream. And I remember when I was training for this competition, though, it was it was kind of like a different mindset. I knew like it's my first year in this class, like I'm not expecting to place, like I'm just gonna go there and do this for myself. And it was kind of this like realization that like I always thought that I was going to be more competitive in a lower weight class, but it was kind of like, maybe I can have both, maybe I can impact people to do this in a healthy way. And maybe I'm actually more competitive when I actually fuel myself with enough food.
After you hit your rock bottom, what did your recovery plan look like? Did you seek help from a professional?
No, like I said, I was pretty lucky where I was able to recover on my own mostly. I just, I went all in. I just kind of ate whatever I want, whenever I wanted, and then slowly restored my hunger cues. And I ended up, like, a few months after I went vegan, that was, I don't know, it was inspired by one of my friends. I just, I was like, oh, like, I've never really liked meat that much. Like, let me try like a few options, right? And I was kind of scared it was going to trigger my recovery. So I wasn't thinking I was going to go like fully vegan, but in a way it was kind of the last part of my recovery, because when I was like deep in my orthorexia, I really thought like keto and paleo and stuff was like the like end all be all, and I like a lot of my fear foods were actually things that were vegan, strangely enough. Like I thought like soy was like terrible, like plant oils and like a lot of things that were vegan, which like I know sounds kind of weird to most people because a lot of people associate like vegans with like, you're eating like super healthy and like vegetables and stuff, but it was kind of the last part of my recovery in a way. And like I was never like raw food vegan or like I never set any labels. It was just like as long as it's vegan, I'll eat it, and it's never impacted my recovery. If anything, it helped it. Like I said, it kind of was the last stepping stone in getting over those like fear foods, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You mentioned vegan, so it's a good stepping stone for Leafy Gains.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about how you started Leafy Gains and how it fits into your story.
So I remember when I was like kind of starting my recovery, or I was making protein cookies. I think I started with the double chocolate, but like just for myself. And when I was actually going to do nationals,
Which nationals?
2020.
Okay.
I was raising money to do nationals, and I did a fundraiser with them. So I was just selling them online, and I even got like a booth at Good Life to sell them, and like so many people like bought them. I was actually like really impressed. I was like, oh, like this is actually like really cool. And I think after that I was like, I'm still gonna sell them kind of thing because it went so well. And right after that the pandemic hit, and it gave me like a lot of time to just like come up with new flavors and like figure out like more of the business detail aspects, I guess. But I never really went full force with it until last year in May. So I was working at Good Life as an assistant fitness manager, and I was kind of doing that on the side. And I started like shipping and stuff like that. So I was shipping out to people. And like certain gyms would have me come do demos and stuff like that. So I was getting a little bit of more opportunities. We started like selling in, maybe 2 or 3 stores. I'm not sure. And I was just so passionate about it. And it kind of became to a point where like even my manager could tell that like I wasn't like fully invested like in my work, because I was like a little bit more focused on that, if that makes sense. And I remember her pulling me in and just saying like I love like, I support you in your opportunity and everything, but like I wish you had that same drive here. And she was like, are you like willing to, I guess like keep trying and stuff? And I was just saying like yes, like kind of agreeing with her, when like in my head like all I could think of was like, no, why am I agreeing to this? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it was just this like, and I walked out of there and it was like this gut feeling of like, you need to start this now. Like the door is open for you to leave right now. Like take the opportunity and do it. And before this, like I didn't plan on leaving anytime soon. Like, and so I think I was talking to Richard, my boyfriend, about leaving, but like it wasn't gonna be like in the like near future, like that near future. Anyways, it was like, let's stick it out a bit longer kind of thing. But I just couldn't. I was so miserable. Like I couldn't do it anymore, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just like, I'm not usually that impulsive when it comes to things like that. Like, but I was like, you know what? Worst case scenario, like I'll get a part-time job on the side, like something a bit less like demanding and stressful, and kind of build it up. But it never came to that. So
and things have been going up ever since.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's been some up and downs, obviously, like anything, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's amazing. Yeah, like over the past few months, like we've been also like chatting every now and then, talking about business in general. And I guess that's honestly like probably how like we started getting closer, just talking about, oh, Veronique, I don't feel really good about my business. Give me a pep talk or something like that.
Yeah, no, honestly, I love those chats too, because I always say, and like, there'll be a few, I know a few like small business people, and like sometimes I'll be like, but how are you doing this and that? And like, I always say like everybody's just kind of winging it, but you feel like everybody has their shit together, but like nobody does. Like,
yeah. And that like also applies to like life in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Quick break. For you, my listeners, Veronique has made a special discount code for her vegan protein cookies. I've ordered at least 50 cookies from her already, and I can tell you with full confidence that these are the best protein cookies I've ever had. Each cookie has between 23 to 28 grams of plant-based protein. They're perfect for people with sensitive digestive systems, like me, and are soft and, dare I say, moist. Made with quality ingredients, your body will thank you for eating a cookie. Available flavors include oat chocolate chip, double chocolate, carrot cake, and ginger molasses. Veronique also occasionally makes limited edition flavors, so make sure to keep your eyes open. Use code No Restrictions on her website leafygains.com. That's code No Restrictions, all one word, on leafygains.com to get 10% off your next order. Now back to the episode. Okay, so back about powerlifting. Nationals, you didn't perform to your expectations. Pan Americans, you didn't quite hit your expectations either. And with after nationals, like going into a downward spiral, did powerlifting ever become a trigger for you?
I don't know. Like it was always like I didn't quite realize like why I wasn't able to kind of perform at my best. Like I felt like I would do really well in the gym, and then like it wouldn't quite be there on the platform. And I think that would like, I don't think I say like I'd ever want to quit, because in a way that would always like motivate me to like kind of work harder after the meet, if anything. But I think a lot of it had to do with like my mentality, that I needed to shift my mindset, if that made sense. Like I thought like, oh, I just need to, work harder and do this and do that. But like when things started happening for me was really when I like started like not caring, but like caring less, if that makes sense. Like just like not stressing about every single detail, and just like take it a bit easy, like chill, like you know what I mean?
So
like,
I imagine that like your anxiety was like really bad.
yeah.
So how did you go from, I guess, being really anxious surrounding meets and maybe even training to now? I'm assuming you're better with managing your anxiety.
Yeah.
How was that like?
It took so much time, like honestly, so much. I had like, I can count maybe like 2 meets where I was like satisfied with the result. I think like exposure therapy, definitely like doing more meets and stuff. And that was kind of on pause for a bit with COVID. But I think just like, I don't know, like working with my coach that I'm working with now, he like really helped me like with his mindset. Just seeing how like nonchalant like he is about things, and like how well he does. And like the more you care, the more things seem to go wrong sometimes. Like I don't know, but I think it's really when you focus like on yourself and like not on what other people are doing. And for me, it's like staying in your subconscious mind, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like I really felt it this nationals, like 2022. A lot of people thought I would be disappointed with my performance, but it was actually one of the performances that I was the most proud of. I really felt the switch, if that makes sense. Like, in training, I think everything was, going well because you just don't think. You just do it. You're like on autopilot, right? And it's so easy in competition to kind of start stressing and get out of that kind of subconscious mind where you're like, what is she doing? And like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, my warm up felt heavy. And like, start like, being in your conscious mind where you have like so many thoughts rolling and like not just let your body like do what it's knows how to do because it's, done it so many times.
So basically the key is to like have that like, oh, this is just another training session.
Yeah.
Whereas everything is like autopilot and you just let your body do what it wants to do.
I feel like sometimes almost differently than you would in training because you're like, you want to do well so bad that you just start like adding extra things that you don't usually do. Like it.
And like you also mentioned that like the more you care about something, like the more things tend to go wrong. I think also part of the reason why that's the case is because like if you have a lot more variables to think about, it's going to increase the stress. And like even if you have like one little thing, let's say I don't know, like let's say you had a bit of difficulty putting on a knee sleeve because you're really sweaty or whatever.
Yeah.
And if that goes wrong, then you'll be like, oh, fuck. And then it just changes the entire mentality and then it becomes like a domino effect.
Exactly. And I feel like when you have experience too, like I had someone handling me and I saw some people backstage that, they weren't able to, and I knew that was me. So like, I'm not here to judge or anything, but like they had some squat warm-ups go bad and they said it themselves that it carried them throughout the entire day. And sometimes when something goes wrong, it's really hard to like not let it kind of spiral you. But I remember like when I warm up for squats for meet, I always feel like I'm going to bomb out. Like it's not a meet if I don't feel like I'm going to bomb out on squats. And I know that. So when I was warming up for squats at Nationals 2022, they didn't feel great, but they actually felt a tiny bit better than they usually do when I usually warm up. You know what I mean? I'm like, they still feel not that great, but like, I'm like, oh, squats are kind of on today actually, because usually they feel way worse. Like,
so I guess just like, I guess meet performance is a lot more mental than like the actual physical aspect, isn't it?
And knowing yourself as a lifter too. Like if I didn't know that every single meet my squat warm-ups are gonna feel heavy, then like
then you'd be panicking all the time. And then like in the end you might actually end up bombing out. So I guess like doing more meets and like learning how you perform and like knowing that you feel like shit like at the very beginning, like every single time.
Yeah.
The next time you go to do a meet and you feel the same way, you'll be like, oh yeah, but that's fine because I'm gonna actually be okay. So like I'm just gonna let this pass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now Worlds. You went to fucking Worlds in Sweden.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
It was such a cool experience. Like it's hard to even put into words because it's like, I don't know, it was my dream. And for a while, I kind of, when I made the decision to go up, and put my recovery first, it's almost like I put that dream aside. I was like, okay, that's never going to happen now. That's not your path. Like, I never like saw a path where both was possible. You know what I mean? But it was just insane. It's like, I never thought it was gonna happen too because of COVID. Like I qualified in 2020, but then like it got canceled in 2020 and almost got canceled in 2021. And then I aged out in 2022. So I like just got to go.
Well, now that like for that meet you're on the international stage and you're going up against like the best of the best, and I imagine you just started getting used to like having like a different mentality where you get to focus on yourself and not be like comparing yourself and your lifts to like other people's. How were you able to maintain that, or were you able to maintain that while on the world platform?
For me, actually, like, I think I had a hard time taking in the experience because the day didn't go as planned at all, like, as what I wanted to do. Like, I feel like I mentally, like, compared to, like, let's say one of my first meet, definitely better because, like, after squats, I was kind of able to rush it off. I'm like, okay, now there's bench. And then bench didn't go as planned. So I'm like, okay, but now there's deadlifts. And deadlift warm-ups felt really good. Usually deadlifts is my hardest lift. But I got some really tough calls on deadlifts. And, like, that's kind of where I kind of broke after. I'm like, well, this was not it. So I was quite upset after, actually. But it is what it is. Like, after, I gave myself the time to kind of take that in, that that's not what I was hoping for. And then I was like, you're at fucking Worlds. There's a bunch of athletes from, like, Ireland, like, God knows where, like, downstairs having drinks. You're gonna, like, wipe up your tears and you're gonna go, make the memories, because that's what it's all about. Like, how often are you gonna be surrounded with people all over the world that share the same passion for the sport as you do?
Since Worlds didn't go as well as you hoped, did you ever feel those eating disorder thoughts, or, like, was it a trigger for you at that time?
No, actually, for that competition, I felt like one of the things that made my squats not go as well was that I ended up not, like, I never weighed full 57 kilos. Like, I was always like 55. And, like, I actually found out the week before that I was not weighing in the morning. I was actually competing at night. So that kind of threw me off, because I was like, oh, like, I can't eat all day now, because, like, I was like, I don't really want to test, like, a water cut, like, when I haven't done one before, like, at Worlds. So I was like, we'll see how it goes. Like, I'm known to drop a lot of weight, like, from stress. So I'm like, maybe I'll have some room to eat. And the thing is, I did have room to eat and I didn't. Like, I should have ate lunch, but the venue was away from the hotel. So, like, when I left, I was like, oh, like, I'm not going to risk it. Like, but then I think I ended up dropping another whole pound from that. So I felt like when I started squatting, it's like a whole, like, I had missed a whole meal. So, like, I only started feeling normal, like, after bench kind of thing.
Was that, like, the biggest stressor for you?
Yeah, like, I wouldn't say the weight was stressful, but, like, my back was, like, cramping on bench. So I felt like my rehydration and everything was not, like, that great, and that kind of threw me off. But I think after that competition, like, I just went right back into training. It was kind of like, a lot of people, after they would do a big meet like that, they would give them, their body some time off. And I think I didn't really go back into eating disorder behaviors, but I was just, like, so, like, stubborn. I was like, no, like, I need to work, like, now. Like, so, like, I should have gave my body a bit more time. I feel like when things started coming more together was, like, Nationals 2022, like, my prep for that. That's when I was like, okay, I need to weigh in, like, 57. I need to be smart. I need to, like, actually monitor my weight, like, the weight, like, the week of the competition. I can't go losing, like, 5 pounds, like, 2 days before the competition. Like, so it's weird because I started tracking for a bit, but it was a way different experience from when I was tracking as a 52, because it was like to eat enough, not the opposite.
What do you mean? Like, back in your binging days, like, you track to see how much you were actually eating, and, like, you weren't, like, tracking macros in like the performance way?
Well, when I was a 52, I was tracking, and then that kind of helped my recovery in a way when I was, like, incorporating different foods and stuff. But obviously my macros were a lot lower because I was, like, kind of cutting to 52 and everything. But this time it was, like, to be a full 57. So, like, to eat a bit more to fill out the class, to make sure I was eating enough, because my weight was always, like, wishy-washy. Like, I was talking to my coach, and it was like 1 week I would be super strong, and my weight would be, like, higher, and then my weight would drop down, and, like, I would be failing all my lifts. So, like, I felt like there was, like, zero consistency, like, and it was like, he's like, we started, like, seeing a pattern. He's like, your ceiling, like, when you eat enough is, like, so much higher than, like, when you're not. Like, he's like, your hierarchy pyramid is, like, fucking eat And then underneath it's like training, like
Wait, your hierarchy of what?
like just like I don't know, like how to like progress as an athlete.
Oh.
I guess. Like,
Well, that's one way to learn that like food is fuel. Like that's like a slap in the face.
yeah. So it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's like all of this time you're almost thinking like food's the enemy when like you actually realize like it's your biggest asset.
Especially in powerlifting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's like one way powerlifting is helpful for recovering from like eating disorder.
Yeah. And like so nationals 2022, I weighed in like 56.73, I think. Like that was the highest I've ever weighed in. Like I ate the whole week like normal, didn't change a thing. Like it was the first time I filled out the class, and now I'm actually it's the first time in the off season that I'm weighing a couple kilos above. So
Solid.
yeah.
How's your body image now?
It's good. Like
That's good.
I actually feel like I've put on a lot of like size recently, you know, like it's weird in a way. Like I don't get that many, I guess, triggering thoughts anymore.
That's good.
But sometimes, you know, you'll have a random thought here and there, but like, cause this was around the weight that I was at like the height of my binging. I was maybe like a little bit heavier, but like the body composition is drastically different. But like mentally, sometimes it's like, I shouldn't be this weight. You know what I mean? Because my brain goes back to like, but you were binging and you were this weight. But like, I never act on those thoughts. I rarely get those thoughts, but you know, sometimes it's kind of like creeps up on you, you know?
Yeah, like actively telling yourself or like actively telling those disordered eating like thoughts to just shut up is like the way to go, because I experienced that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this is the first episode with a guest, and I decided that I wanted to have some closing questions that I would ask every guest. They might change in the future, but this is what I have right now. So, question 1. What is currently your biggest mental health struggle, and how does lifting help?
My biggest mental health struggle, honestly, I would say like we just talked about, like I don't get that many eating disorder thoughts anymore. I feel like if anything, they translate to like my business and my lifting, if that makes sense. Like you're always trying to like achieve more and like have control over those things. So it's just like trying to find a balance of like training is not everything, your career isn't everything, like just have like more of a balance in life. And recently I was, you know, I guess I like if I would fail a lift, I would before, like even like a few months ago, I would, you know, full blown mental breakdown. But like it's only been like recently that like now I'm like, okay, it's fine. So like obviously still working on that. Sometimes it's better than others, but like just not being so hard on myself, I guess.
And so how does powerlifting help with those issues?
I feel like it just makes me feel like capable and strong. Like if I can, you know, lift things that I've never imagined possible, like what else can I do? So like if I'm experiencing something really hard in my life, whether it's like a traumatic event or, you know, I'm just going through like a busy time, like right now I'm going through an insane time with the business and like it's a lot to handle, and sometimes I'm like, how am I gonna do this all, you know? But like it just like helps like reassure me that like I can do more than I think is possible, I guess.
I mean, you went to Worlds after all. After all.
I know what you mean.
Okay, question 2. There's only 3, by the way. What's keeping you going in powerlifting right now?
I think like obviously like I just said, like constantly pushing limits. Like I love to just like see what I'm capable of. I love being like an aspect of the community. Like the best part about like nationals is always like, you know, I usually stay the week and like you make so many like friendships and like so many memories, and like it's always like isn't like when you leave nationals, it's not really like post meet blues, it's like post like friendship blues. I don't know, like you're leaving and you're just just like, oh, like that was such a fun time. Like I want to keep, like I want to stay. Like
Kind of like post-vacation blues.
yeah. And I'm guessing Easterns is going to be super fun this year as well. Like I want to get like more involved in the local scene, like especially now that like I'm open and going to take some time to grow and stuff. But I find that aspect with local meets as well, like Worlds is an insane experience, but you're not there to have fun and chat with your competitors. Like, let's be honest. Like,
I guess so. I wouldn't know.
like everybody's in the zone and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you have like, you know, everybody's like team coaches, like with their like,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see what you mean.
it's very intense. And like, you know, when you go at a local meet, everybody's just like cheering for each other. And even nationals, like during the competition itself, like people don't really chat to each other, but like after the week of, like, is really fun with everyone. But that's what's fun about the local meets is like I feel like during the competition, most people are just like really chill. Like you can just kind of chat and make some friends there.
So basically, like local meets or maybe up to nationals, it's kind of like you're just doing it to have fun, have a good time, like make some friends and like kind of just see what you're capable of. But then at Worlds, it's like, this is a fucking competition.
Yeah. I mean, I guess everybody's different too. Like I know some people like kind of eases their nerves to just kind of talk and, you know, but other people like they have to have like their zone that they're in. So it's like,
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. It is Worlds.
yeah.
It's like the highest level you can get to
Yeah.
in the sport.
But even like other competitions, like, you know what I mean? Like some people are just like very intense lifters and other people are just like more chill and calm, I guess. Like everybody has
I guess it depends on their personality.
yeah.
And question 3. If you could change anything about the journey you took on from your lowest point to now, what would you change and why? Or would you change anything?
I'm not sure if I would change anything, honestly. I don't think I would be like the person I am today without going through all of that. Honestly, like every part of the journey has like made me into who I am today, pretty much. Like, so as hard as it was and like as like horrible of a time as it was, it's, yeah, I don't know, it's shaped me into who I am, I guess.
It's kind of like saying everything happens for a reason,
Yeah.
except like you're past the point of crisis. So now it's like slightly more acceptable.
Yeah, like I think because when I was there, like I was convinced that I was gonna live with it like for the rest of my life. So like I think if I could like tell that person, like tell the old me, like you are gonna get through this and like get on top, like there's hope. Yeah, like I never imagined that I'd be here, like just like living my life and not like, you know, having my life like revolve around my eating disorder and food. So yeah, I guess I feel like really grateful for where I am now. And yeah,
Thank you for sharing your story.
thank you for having me.
I feel like I need to give you a hug. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this episode with Veronique inspiring. I sure did. You can find Veronique on Instagram at Leafy Lifter and at Leafy Gains Protein Cookies, and her website, leafygains.com. Also, don't forget to use code No Restrictions, all one word, to get 10% off of your next order of soft, delicious, and moist vegan protein cookies. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at No Restrictions Pod and at No Restrictions Apparel. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. If you want another way to support us, you can purchase some No Restrictions apparel. Just visit norestrictionsapparel.com. Thanks again for listening, and talk to you next time.